Ready? That's a record. Yes. I know. Yes, sir. Very good. Favorite ever. Thank you. You're welcome. And look, just you and I.
Oh, that's gonna work.
Just you and I. We can vote everything in.
I doubt
Oh, Nick. I just said, Carl, looks like it's gonna be just you and I. We can vote everything in. And then you showed up and I went, ah. We were gonna change our voice and do really good. Approve. That's what he said.
There's a couple extra tables in here this week.
Room. Hey, did we reschedule it? I asked him to add you to it too. A little premature. People who needed to be in there to give some guidance to why.
Well, and I don't know a lot about it.
Well, and Judy wasn't on there.
It started and stopped before I ever got over there. I just remember.
Oh, ISF.
It came up at our first governance ad while I was over there. So well, we take all these reps off. That thing, dude.
Yep. And then go for it.
So it wasn't.
I've heard that too. I heard that.
I heard it. Never agreed with that.
It happened.
Let's see. Deb is on for waiting on. Ed is not going to be here. Linda's going to Beth and Linda's going to home. So once Deb gets here.
Are they on? Or can we tell?
Wait a minute, she just sent a text. I'm sorry. Oh, her dad's on that.
You mean we didn't get it?
Nice try. She went home sick. After she already infected everybody.
She was just
Not feeling good.
I should have done it.
it was the extra book.
I actually haven't heard it run it. Don't know.
I don't think there's going to be.
And magnet. Thank you. Old age.
Has issue with play.
Meeting and in case it comes up. Some crackers.
And this. No, it would. Based on getting those never mind.
No, he did.
Beth?
Yes, I just joined.
Okay, great. And now, Deb.
Okay. That also came up in the meeting. Go ahead and.
I thought you were. He was already here?
Surprised whenever you see me.
Yeah, so I just told you you're not going to be here.
My days are a little confused.
Okay. I'm glad you said that because they thought I was lying. So.
I don't know where I'm coming or going.
We're glad you're here. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll open with roll call. So, Deb Roby.
Here.
Ed Rose.
Really here.
Tim Builder. Here. Carl Forney.
Here.
April Evans.
Here.
Beth Altman is on. Beth? Did she drop off? And Linda, I just got a text from who's not going to be able to
After she says here.
join us.
Right.
Beth? I guess she'll drop back in, but we know.
Here, can you hear?
Yes.
No, we can read you.
Beth?
When she first got on, we did.
Have to do it by chat.
She disconnected.
Have an action item? Maybe just read from the.
We have quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully Beth can join us. Disconnect. Might want to tell her that, and we'll go. I'm going to change the agenda around this.
I didn't do it.
We have, of course, we're going to have the reading of the review of the minutes. And after that, we're going to move IB&B up. Here, we're going to move the IB&B report up after the minutes. And then we can proceed with the rest of the agenda, which is what we laid out here. Okay. So we'll have Kristen go over the review and approval of our last meeting minutes.
Good afternoon. The meeting minutes from the January 12th meeting are starting on page 5 in the booklet right after the agenda. First page includes welcome and introduction. The meeting was called to order at 1:01 with all advisory board members present. Other DHS&B members and visitors are listed. We reviewed the minutes from December 8th. They were accepted unanimously by the members. At the bottom of page 5 begins the policy and decisions review discussion. This goes at links to page 6 as well as page 7. So feel free to interject any corrections that you might have there. All right, bottom of page 7 starts the Motorist Phase 1 program update. Wendy Ling provided an update of the program status that you can see there. Flipping over to page 8, Janice gave us a budget review. Also on page 8 starts the IB&B update. Joe Horgan presented on behalf of IB&B. Here's video. Okay.
On the top of page 9, the second from the last bullet for IB&B, it says 20 deficiencies were cleared out. There were only 9 deficiencies.
Okay. We'll get that corrected. Anything else? Okay. Page 9, about midway, we didn't have any change requests to review with the advisory board. The senior VAs gave an update on the requirements validation and the progress of the team. And at the bottom of page 9 starts the communications update that was provided by Samaj Jones. This continues over to page 10. The meeting was adjourned at 1:33 p.m. And on page 11 provides the list of the handouts that were provided to members.
Minor correction on the third bullet from the top, page 10. We will proceed, not we proceed, will proceed with our planned outreach too. And the other one is kind of a typo, I think, but on the fourth bullet from the bottom it says I have, you have. I believe it should have said I hope you have.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Fourth from the bottom. The last time we were here, we were not able to go over the advisory pages, but I have you have.
Second from the bottom up, communications.
Yeah.
Any other corrections? Okay, at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 12th, 2016 with 3 corrections. One identified on page 9, correcting the number of deficiencies, and 2 grammatical corrections identified by somebody on page 10. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
All right, so, thank you. Beth, were you able to join?
Time on. I dialed back by phone.
Okay, great. Now we're gonna, as I mentioned, Beth, I don't know if you heard, change the agenda around this a little bit. We're gonna have the IGB update now. Gary video here from Watt.
Thank you.
So from an IB&B perspective, we're at a point in the project where it gets kind of boring for us because things are going really well. So as it was last month, the overall risk state from an IB&B perspective is green. There's no open deficiencies. The project is still slightly behind schedule according to the SPI calculations, but it's well within the threshold. Actually, I'm going to show that to you. So as you can see, the green is the good area, so the data points are within the green area, and they're also clustered, which means that the project is not falling farther behind schedule. It's being well controlled. The team is doing a great job. Go back here a little bit. This is the history of the queue. As you can see, we've been reporting green for this reporting period and last reporting period. We don't foresee any deficiencies coming up. We are paying attention to what's happening in the next phase of the project with the release plan and the development efforts, and we're starting to work with the project team to take a look at the deliverables that are coming out in the future to see which ones we want to take a look at and include in our analysis. Just kind of scrolling through here, everything's looking good. You guys should be proud. You've come a long way. That's all I have.
All right, next on the agenda is our stakeholder outreach, update outreach. So basically, we've had, a few meetings, but the ones I want to highlight, and I think somebody has some details on these later. On the 20th of January, I believe, we the group went down to Orlando and met with some of the tax collectors. We have 3 focus groups, as we have mentioned. Linda, who's well aware of that, she's not on the line with us today. We have a focus group for the portal. We have a focus group for deal issuance and also for renewal. Samadhi was able to secure a very nice facility down at Valencia College. We had like 2 classrooms there. We ended up combining the portal group and the renewal group into one classroom. Andrea and Laura and Judy ran the portal, and then Jessica and Kathy did the deal issuance group. And things went really well. There were a couple of items, and I think it's time that we said we're going to kind of briefly go over some of the highlights from your area. Jessica, you want to go first? And some of the things you heard in the deal issuance from the tax collectors.
So we started out by giving an overview of what the new system is going to include. We had mock-ups to show them and kind of went over the requirements for each one of those pages. And out of those, we had 14 issues that came in total. I wouldn't call them issues. It was more like we gave them the opportunity to give us feedback on what are the issues that they're having currently with the new system, and then we showed them how we addressed it in the new system. So I'll go over 3 of them. I have issue number 3, which you can see on page 13, is CDL exams are displayed on a different screen from Class E exams. And we let them know that and showed them that in the new system, all of the exam data will be on the same page so that they can compare the information from the same page. Issue 11 on page 14, I'm sorry, issue 8 on page 14 is that they would like to stop having to enter all 9s when the customer doesn't have a social security number, which they currently do if they're creating a record. Well, we let them know that they're no longer going to have to do that because we're going to have a no social security number indicator, which in the back end will fill that in for them. That way they don't have to spend time typing in the numbers, and there's less room for errors, so they won't be entering the wrong numbers, like all zeros, for example. Issue number 11, users would like the ability to add comments when voiding a transaction. Currently, if they void a transaction, there's nothing that they're putting in there. They're just going to void it, and at some point, if somebody's looking at that transaction, they just kind of have to figure it out or call that manager and ask them why they did it. Now we're making it a requirement to enter a reason. That way, there's no question, and they can add comments if they need to. So,
And were there any issues that came up that they were just totally unhappy with, or anything that we need to take, or anything that
no,
they just...
overall, they were very happy. They gave us a couple of suggestions about what to remember when considering the page designs. One of those was remember that frivolous users are tab happy. So we have to remember that when we're designing the pages, we're also saying that, you know, questions that are related to each other are next to each other so that when they're tabbing through, they're in the correct order. They asked us to enter information like the ability to submit medical information outside of a transaction, which we're including now in new transactions. So those are still things that are up for debate that we're discussing during our grooming meetings. And once we have a decision, or if we can't come to a decision, then you'll see it come up on our decision document so that we can discuss it here.
Judy, you want to do it under renewal?
I'll start with renewal. We gave them an overview of the renewal system and some of the new functionality included in that system. Right now we're on page 16. One of the things that came out of question 3, we talked about the email notifications that the department is going to send out. And I think it was Dale Hoffman that had a question about, one, would they be able to see what those emails look like? And yes, through the system, they'll be able to pull up a PDF version of that email. So if the customer had a question about something that was on it, they would be able to visually view what we sent out as well. The other thing had to do with some branding. They wanted to be able to include maybe their URL address for their website, or if it's or their office location. Instead of right now, we had a general link that says click here to view offices, but if we know, which we do at that time, what county is responsible for that registration, we can take them directly to that subset of offices for that particular county. So we're going to look into some of those things to see what we can do to kind of accommodate some of those requests. There was another question about the MOUs. We told them that we would now be verifying the vendor's MOU status at the time we generate the files and when they come to pick up the files, and that we also told them that we would be notifying them if the vendors were delinquent in picking up the files and things of that nature. There was a mixed, some of the counties wanted to be notified on every email that we send out, even if it didn't particularly pertain to them per se, and some just wanted to know when there was a problem. So one of the things we talked about was being able to control the notification levels so that if they want to get every email that we send to the vendor, they could get that as well, and if not, they could just get the ones that were pertinent for them needing to take some action on. There were some other tweaks, some inconsistencies we had where we were missing the model, which is something we're starting to capture now that we implemented as part of EFS. So we needed to go back and make sure we were including that on all of the email notices as well as the printed notices as well.
What about the other issue about they informed that all counties don't do renewals?
Mhm.
And that
So you-
came back to the office, because in our statement, we said you may visit any local tax collect or any tax collector office, and they informed us that that's not true. Some counties will only process their constituents in their office. So we're going to change that verbiage to, instead of saying any, visit your local tax collector.
Any questions about renewal update? Okay.
On portal, we gave them an overview of the new system functionality. One of the areas we talked about was the federated ID and also how to identify the customers as they're signing up for a portal account. So we talked about some of the things that we used, which was the Social Security number. We went back and forth on the issue of using issue date, because as currently, if somebody has lost their license, they're not going to have their front of it. They're all going onto the portal to get a replacement. They won't have the license in front of them to tell us what the issue date is. So we talked about some other things that we can do as far as looking at their customer record with DHSMV, like perhaps maybe identifying, give them multiple choices of what's your first car, how many cars you own, or things that we can tell by looking at the data on the system that the customer would know without having to have the physical card actually in front of them. One of the other things that came up, we talked about the notice for non-ownership, and there's a form that they fill out. And they had a question of concern, because I think right now there's a fear where we capture the purchaser or the entity. And they were saying currently now, with a lot of sales being done online or through Craigslist or what have you, they don't necessarily know who that person is. And right now in the current system, it forces them to enter something. So they wanted us to look at that, and maybe Craigslist is an acceptable answer, but that's something we need to go back and look at internally as far as the form and what information is truly going to be required at that time.
Okay. Any questions about the tax collector meeting, focus group, refocus group? We informed them at the end. We may, in the future, have all three groups meet at the same time. It may be the portal group to meet. Some of these, of course, we can do with GoToMeeting and WebEx, whatever, but we just thought it was very important to have the first meeting, everybody there in person, and it really worked out well. Last week, I believe it was, we also had a meeting. Beth set up a meeting for us to talk to the circuit court, and Chris is going to give us an overview of that meeting, and Beth, you can jump in if you'd like as well.
Yes, good afternoon. Last Tuesday, we went over to Beth's office and met with the Court Operations Committee. Barbara Scott is the chair of that committee, and she's out of Charlotte County. There were about 3 local staff in the room, and the rest of the committee members attended virtually via conference call. We gave them a program overview, as well as we gave them information on portal and DL issuance functionality. The thing that came up was regarding purchasing other driver transcripts. So they wanted to be able to do that, purchase other driver transcripts. So we said we would take note of that and bring that back to the team to discuss. Do we want to talk anything about that today?
Beth, are you on? No.
And so they had lots of questions. They just wanted clarification on kind of the things that we were showing them, reviewing with them. Lots of good feedback about where we had gone, so the progress that we've made thus far. So.
And Judy, so there was one of the, that meeting. At some point, they have requested, which we have, talked to Terry about or mentioned that at some point they would like to have an actual clerk on the advisory board. So I'm not sure. I wish Beth was on, but at some point they're going to want to make that switch. So we'll let Terry talk about that. So.
Did you have any discussions with the youth agenda, which I know the subject of interest to them, but anything about citation processing, or did y'all not that on?
No, I mean we talked about citation process, but there was not any, no questions that they,
Nothing about D6s or?
they didn't.
Just curious.
Future stakeholder outreach, we're also, we're going to be planning a meeting here probably sometime in the next couple of months to meet with all of the high-speed, print and high-speed renewal vendors. We want to get all of the vendors together. We're at that point in increment 3 of the requirements validation process that we want to sit down with them and make sure they understand and see if there's anything that we need to tweak with the requirements. So at some point we'll be setting up that meeting with them. And then of course we'll let you know as we have future meetings that are planned. Well, there's one. Later in about 2 weeks, Kristen and some other members of the team will be going to Montgomery to look at their version of online insurance verification. And they're going to leave there and drive to Baton Rouge to look at Louisiana. They will have just implemented the week prior to us getting there. So we're, of course, after meeting with the insurance industry, their committee, we told them we investigate that. The ESC is aware. The trip has been approved for us to do this investigation. So a member of the advisory board will be with us. Carl is going on the trip with us. He seems so happy about that. So all that time in the state van. So that will be in 2 weeks, right? Yeah. So. All right, next on the agenda will be policy and decision review. Jessica and the team are going to give you an update on those decisions that have been made by the ESC, and of course, some of those are still open. We'll walk you through those and a couple of new ones that were added to the document.
All right, so the first item that's still open and has an update is EIP 02 on page 22.
That's the one team to discuss how to handle out-of-state citation numbers. Currently, we use 4 zeros. Consider using the reference ID number. The update is the zeros are not helpful when legal is involved. Leave this item open until more information is available. And CIT 03, determine if Florida citation numbers will be expanded to 20 characters. The action item for this is find out if state to state has issued identifying numbers for each state. If so, plan to use these numbers in the new system to prepare for state to state.
And I think that one, they asked us to talk to you, Deb, because you're on the committee for state to state. And I guess we have to have like a follow-up meeting to discuss some of those things, like what do we see or what do we foresee that we're having to implement in the new system to prepare for state to state.
It should be very similar to Federal.
Okay. Then the next item is an item that was closed during the last meeting, which was POR 09 on page 25. And ESC asked us to close this item and use the recommendation, which is, let me read what it says. It's currently an individual cannot go into a field office and request another driver's transcript, only their own. Verifying the department wants to allow, or verify that the department wants to allow individual customers to purchase other drivers' redacted history records via the new online portal. If so, should the search criteria be more precise? For example, DL, date of birth, and how many inquiries at one time. So based on the last recommendation and after we gave them some examples of what those transcripts look like, they would like for us to go ahead and require that the user uses the DL number or the first, last name, and date of birth. So they have 2 options, and the first, last name, and date of birth are optional when using the DL number.
Or and the social security number is used with that.
Okay. Okay. So that item is closed. POR 10 was the next item that we closed, and that one was what are the requirements for the portal as it relates to GovQA public records, and if so, what are the requirements? So the ESC agrees with the legal recommendation, which is to record the information that we currently record by GovQA or through the GovQA form, and close the item. The next open item is on page 29. Judy can discuss this in more detail. It's POR 24 on page 29. So it says, currently if a transcript request is received in the mail for a driver license record and the driver license record is not found, the customer does not receive a refund unless the amount sent is greater than $10, or the customer requests a refund for the amount exceeding the $2 not found fee. The mixed process currently charges $2 for all not found record requests. The portal team is requesting that we do not charge the $2 fee for other driver license requests when the driver license or social security number entered is not found. We will, however, charge this fee of the bulk driver license record request.
You're only talking about $2. And the $2 you mentioned at the beginning, the $10 thing. But this issue really only addresses the $2 issue.
Yes.
Because on the $10, just as an aside, we did approve that policy. On the if they that we're only going to do a refund.
Correct. That's what they informed us. And the reason the team, one of the issues we had with about, or the individual, if they request another driver's transcript and it's not found, the reason we were saying to not charge the $2 fee is because the customer will realize when they get to the shopping cart and get ready to check out, where we, on the page itself, we tell them it's going to be $10. They get to the shopping cart and see that we're only charging $2. I would realize that something, either I'm getting a great deal or something's not right, and I would just abandon the transaction anyway. So that's why it was our recommendation that we not charge them online for it. We would do it in bulk, but not online. So, and we were going to verify that the DL number that they entered was correct and just return them an error message if it wasn't, but not on the bulk process because they're giving us the entire file. I don't, because I wasn't there for the last one, so did we get that last, or do we need a recommendation from this board to take back to ESC?
Yeah, because ESC Diana kind of thought that her thoughts were be charged the $2. But like she said, we didn't bring it to her attention that they could just abandon the cart if they see the difference in the money amount. Like she said, Judy said either they think they got a good deal or this doesn't look like, and I just don't want the transfer.
And there's not going to be a message or anything that comes up telling them that that record wasn't found?
Yeah, we could on the individual when we were doing it on the individual one, because they can only do so many, and we were going to return a message if what they entered was not correct and not charge them the $2. But on the bulk, because they're submitting the file, we wouldn't do that. We would do like the mixed process is currently doing. They send the file, we validate, and if they have incorrect ones, and then we send them and build them. So it's a little different. But
where is the dividing line between what do we consider bulk?
It's a separate bulk process. That's where
it's a different
a business. They're going to register and sign up with us.
That's what I thought.
To be a participant in that particular process.
So it's not a specific number that throws it into that category?
No.
And do the portal can only buy one at a time? 2, 3, 4?
I think we have a limit on how many they can. Yeah, we have a limit on you as a person buying another record. I think it's yourself and one other one. Then you would have to do something else, come in again.
But it's for a particular time period. Then you have to come back after so many days or whatever.
So, okay. So if I'm trying to buy 2, and 1 is not found,
correct,
you're still just going to charge for the 1, and not the 2, not the $2 for that second one. Correct. Or if I buy 1 and it's not found, we're not going to charge the $2 for that either.
Correct.
So it's really 3 or more.
No.
Effectively.
2 or more. 2. You could, if it's because you can do yourself and one other. So, and we definitely not going to charge you because you had to authenticate as the person coming in for yours.
But they're separate. They're like almost like separate transactions. You come to the screen, you select, I want my own personal one, and you put in, well, you don't put in anything because we know who you are.
Right.
And it's going to be there. But if you select, I want to purchase another driver's transcript, when you come to the screen and fill in their personal information, right then we can tell you,
Right.
DL not found or whatever's not found, and don't go any further.
Will we offer them an opportunity to actually buy the not found, though, if they want to?
We didn't think of that.
Talked about.
It's rare, but it does happen, where people will want a letter that says there's no record. Right, because they want confirmation.
Right.
It's rare, I'll readily admit. But there may be people who, their other state, make sure I say this right, but the other state, they moved to another state. And what they're actually trying to do is get a clearance letter. Do we still offer that as a separate item?
Correct, we do have that option.
Clearance letter then, because see, some states say clearance letter, some states say go buy a driving record.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually will want something that says no record found back to that state to say they're. That happens when you have people with similar names, dates of birth. They'll tell the customer,
just charge for that.
Well,
We do
you're showing up in PDPS,
That would be
having a sanction, but it's really
somebody else.
It's really somebody else that's
Charge them.
similar, and so they will, well,
Just
we want confirmation. So they'll want a no record from Florida, and maybe an actual clearance letter from their real, that maybe they really were from Georgia, so they'll actually end up getting two, because now they've moved to Illinois.
So we could ask the question when we get the not found, if they would like to receive the.
Well, I mean, if you're offering them a clearance letter, then most people who are going to want that are probably going to go that route anyway.
But the clearance letter would only be for, you'd have to be on our database in order to get a clearance letter. So you say they were previously here and they left here.
One is that there is no record.
But then it wouldn't have a name.
But they wouldn't be able to come through the portal, is what I'm saying. So they,
it wouldn't have a name, it wouldn't have a date of birth.
Well, right, yeah, the only point of a clearance letter is you want it to say there's no record of a Stephen Fielder born on this date in the state of Florida with a license or a sanction.
They wouldn't get that in the portal.
so that's what I'm saying. They couldn't get it in the portal because you can't log in unless you have a record here.
Right. Okay. So those people will have to do something else. All right, never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was a short trail.
So is there a recommendation from this group to not charge, are you good, okay, with not charging $2 on the not found, or
On the other,
for the other
driver?
What charges they're not getting?
I didn't hear.
Unless they want it. If they want the not found, then they would pay the $2.
for the not found letter.
Or they pay the 10 or whatever.
So give them the option to purchase the $2 not found.
If they need it, which is again rare. Maybe once every 3 months, maybe you might have one of those.
That prompt read, this record has not been found, would you like to purchase this record? Having not been found.
Correct. I don't know how we're gonna. I don't know if that is part of the screen.
This record does not exist.
We don't transcripts right now. We're using the existing IP for the transcript, and it does not currently.
But we wouldn't call the transcript because we notified before we even made the call to the service that it's not found.
Correct. So we have to do something.
You have to have some information on it in order to have any value. You have to say there's no record of
whatever license name they entered.
And then you just regurgitate whatever they put back.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Otherwise, it has no value at all.
Statute. We had the statute change to say that we can charge the $2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing to consider.
That we can.
That we can.
Right. But our point is, we can't force them.
So you can't make them buy it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Agree.
So the recommendation is that we're going to give them the option, right? That
The option to purchase the not found.
And if they don't want it, then we won't charge.
Right. Okay. I think that will be a little more palatable anyway, because while I don't agree janitorial. My only hesitation is the fact that we are in fact charging that in the bulk system.
Right.
And so I think it makes me feel a little better that we're going to give them, let them decide if they want to buy it or not.
And what we were,
I'm just taking it.
right, and we were concerned about if they had fat fingered in by,
Right.
you know, and they said internally if somebody had sent enough something in and they couldn't find it, they would try to find it by some other means to see, oh, I see where they misspelled something or whatever, and they would still be able to satisfy the request. Whereas, so, that's fine.
Makes sense.
All right, so the next item is DL01. It's still an open item for the print hazmat extension letters. The last update we have is that the ESC recommends changing the hazmat extension temporary permit to be issued for 60 days. And that came from the FMCSA requirement for us not to issue temporary permits for any CDL license for more than 60 days. Currently, they're issuing them for 90 days. But there is, from my conversation with Todd the other day, there's a clause in FMCSA that says that we are allowed to extend the hazmat while they're trying to fix whatever issue went wrong for 90 days. So we do have another option to stop issuing the temporary permit when we send the hazmat extension letter and just issue them the letter that says that they have to carry it with their license. That way, we're not restricting them to less days than what they're eligible for. So the ESC has left this item open until we can provide a copy of the current extension letter for review with legal, and then after that, we'll make a decision. So the next item is DL05 on page 30. The motor voter application should allow users to enter a partial address in the previous address field. This is actually one of the items that has been recommended to be closed, but it remains open because we're waiting to obtain a DLS legal, or I guess an official sign-off to say that they're okay with these recommendations. That goes for DL07, which was about recording the information. Sorry, not that one. That one was actually closed because of the GovQA requirements. We're going to follow what Portal is doing. But DL10 on page 31 and DL11 on page 31 and DL15 on page 31 all have been closed because we're just waiting for that official sign-up from DLS. Next item is DL23 on page 32. This was the one that we discussed during the last advisory board meeting, and we're still pending DLS and the HSMV legal opinion on this. It's about having access to the motor voter data so that we know what updates truly need to take place on the customer's record for motor voter. And then the last item that was closed during the last ESC meeting was REN02, which is the customer stops for bad checks. ESC agrees with the recommendation, and they are asking do not include transcripts of voluntary contributions on these transactions. All other items are still pending more information.
Any questions? Okay. Janice? And go for weekend a financial update for the folks, please.
Very cool. We're excited. We are on track again. We are working, staff are currently reviewing 4 deliverables that we have, and we're getting another one released this week, and IBMB is released this week, so we'll be working on. Hopefully we'll have all those closed out the end of February and paid by the end of February, so we'll continue to be on track. Our budget amendment number 2 has been uploaded into Constellation, from what I understand, so we should see that released within the next couple of weeks. So in really good shape going into March, the last quarter of this fiscal year. And right now, good news from House and Senate, so we're looking forward to having those numbers finalized in the next few weeks. It's actually, it was sent, I approved it through December, but it is now converted in January, so it's
Thank you. Wendy, want to give us a program update and go ahead and talk about the change request?
Just to give everyone a status on where we are with the schedule, we are trending still slightly behind with our test case development. Grooming is on schedule. For increment 1, we've actually completed all of the stories, the grooming for all stories for all of the teams. For increment 2, I know that the BA will get into the particulars of that as far as where they are, but I know that financial responsibility and citation processing, so let's everybody complete for grooming. The test cases, we have all of the test cases are starting to catch up despite being behind. As of last week, we showed that DL issuance is sitting at 88% completion for their test cases, and motorist maintenance is sitting at 82%, and all other teams were complete. The estimates for, or the validation of the development estimates is what we are also struggling to try and keep up with. Right now, my DMV portal is sitting at 94%, excuse me. Renewal notification is at 84%, DL issuance is at 60%, motorist maintenance is at 65%, FR is at 31%, and citation processing still is at 100% complete. So the reason for no movement on FR is the fact that they're still trying to go back and review those epic stories that they've identified. And we actually have been working with the teams to mitigate the fact that we're behind on those development estimations. So we've included additional meetings per week, and we have also a contingency plan to add meetings perhaps on Saturday morning so that the teams can actually get through and try and get this up to date.
I want to jump in 1 second. And I think we may have talked about this before, but that was one of the lessons learned from working on EFS and Capture. Of course, we went through and did all of the team did estimates, and then by the time it got to the developers, you know, updating the group, the estimate, you know, it caused us in the very beginning along a number of things. That wasn't the only thing, but a number of things that caused us to be behind at the beginning of that project. So one of the things we did for Motorist Phase 1 is to have the individual teams do the estimates for development, and then there's a second review of validation of those estimates, and that's what we're currently trending behind on. So we added extra meetings for the week, and as Wendy stated, if need be, we are going to have folks work on, you know, Saturdays or weekends to catch up on those estimates, just so everyone is on the same page as far as where we stand with the estimates. And we can't, as I said many times, when the gun sounds in July, we can't be walking to the track. We got to be coming out of our stance ready to go. So this is all these things that we need to make sure that we have tight and ready to go. Yeah, like I ran track. So these are all the things that we need to have ready to go starting in July. So talk like that. Sorry, with you.
And you said your spiel there was about estimates, but now you had mentioned something about test cases and
test cases.
Stories, which are, I know, all interrelated, but
they are interrelated. They're actually working on the test cases as a result of the Green stories. And something else that we're working with the teams to make sure that happens is that the test cases don't get so far ahead that they're starting to write test cases on stories that have not been completely validated. So we don't want to get ahead of the cart, so to speak. We want to make sure that they're using their time wisely and don't have to go back and rework things because we didn't finish the validation of those requirements that they're looking at to develop this case.
And one of the things that's happened as well, Stephen, is that I think Boyd has also authorized, I believe, 8 developers that are now helping Julie's staff with those test cases as well to try to catch up.
So what, I mean, you mentioned EFS, DTR, In the development of the user stories and the test cases and that process, what is different now versus what you did with the CTO?
We were wanting that one thing that's different is that we want the test cases, before we waited on the test cases, perhaps waited too long, we want the testers, this go around, the testers actually in the room as part of that process, which before they were not. That led to a lot of, later on, people not understanding. The developers were not in there, so by the time it got to them, they didn't understand, and they, oh, by the way, I don't agree with this estimate. So what we've tried to do is have everybody, in the room, on the team at the same time. Now, we've had challenges, as you know, with trying to get the testers in there because they were short-staffed, and they were also finishing up capture and EFSETR.
Right, so you can't be over testing and doing all these meetings at the same time.
Right.
So,
right.
Like I said, I'll leave the details for this video. Okay. Talking about the change request, if we talk a little bit about change request 8 and change request 9 that are listed in the book on page 34. The first change request was actually to move information on the FR items for clearance and batch processing. We were moving that from the second increment to the third increment, and we did that as a little bit of an adjustment based on the staffing that was available to answer the questions and actually help with the validation of those requirements. So there was no overall impact to the data schedule. This was basically a bait and switch, if you will. The second item for change request 9, the intent of that was actually a missed requirement for citation processing. There was, as they were going through increment 2, they discovered a correspondence code that was missing, so they needed to add that as well as a letter that goes with that. So the intent was to make sure we capture that and not miss that.
And we reviewed these with the ESC already. We just wanted to come back and close the loop with the advisory board and let you know what changes that we had approved with them. It kind of came up and we had an ESC opportunity, so we presented it at that time.
We will have 2 pending change requests that are ongoing right now as far as change requests 10 and 11. We're working to revamp or realign, if you will, some technical tasks that needed to be associated with deliverables that were actually inversed. We needed to, one was associated with deliverable 44 and one was associated with 28, so we're just trying to put those back because they're in the wrong place. And the other change request that we have is actually to try and make sure that we have accurate dates for the development estimations as we're trying to mitigate the fact that they're behind. So we're trying to go through that and make sure that we have a plan for recovery and when we'll actually complete those development estimations.
All right. Now we're down to requirements validation. I have all the senior DAs give a quick update on the other things there. Requirements validation for each of the teams. Okay. Kathy?
For financial responsibility, we're currently working on reviewing deliverable 36. We're in review cycle 2, which has to be submitted back tomorrow. And we're getting ready to start increment 3, C's tags, and we are on schedule for that. And citation processing SID list, we're currently working on reviewing deliverable 39, review cycle 1. And we're preparing to start increment 3 with point suspension. And citation processing is also on schedule.
For DL issuance, we're wrapping up the functional areas exam and cashier, and we're due to finish grooming on this Thursday, February 11th. Our deliverable review will start on February 18, which is next Thursday, and we're on schedule.
For the renewal notification team, increment 2, we're closing up the last of those user stories for this increment. We've actually started some pre-reviewing for our deliverable, which is due on the 24th of February. Everything for increment 2 is going well. We're kind of ahead of schedule and everything is good. For my DMV portal, we are also coming up on our increment 2 deliverable the next couple of weeks. We're finishing up, right now we're working on the insurance update piece, which is part of clearing an FR sanction online. We're on schedule and everything is going well.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Just one.
Okay.
The modernization project as a whole, the entire thing, is obviously a multi-year deal. So for all the teams that you have and that you're working with and all the work that you're doing, and you mentioned you're trying to catch up on some things and they work Saturdays or whatever, which is all fine. Do that, not get all that, that's fine. But overall, the pace at which everyone is going on your side and for what you know about the motorist side, is it sustainable for multiple years? Or my concern, or are we going to burn people out?
Well, I think one thing that has to happen in July is that once we move into development, they've already started on reducing the number of people on the team. We just haven't submitted that yet because we're not going to need as many team members at that point for each of the teams. As far as at some point there'll be a slight break, I guess, before we start looking at motor vehicle. I know one thing that we're looking to do in ISA so that people don't have to, and that's going to give some relief to motor services and DAS and the other divisions and offices or whatever. But in ISA, one thing that we're working on doing is that we will dedicate some of the developers, rather than try this 30%, your 40%, your 60% on Motors Mod, you either on Motors Mod 100% or you're doing operational stuff. So that way people are not having to get pulled back and forth between the two. Now, of course, we know that if any operational issue comes up, the state is down, we'll pull where we need to right whatever. So those are some things that, you know, that we need, I agree that we need to be concerned about, is not burning people out. And I think it will help once we move into development. Once we go into development, you have a daily stand-up, which is supposed to last only 15 minutes, which is why you stand up. And then we have a couple other meetings throughout the sprint process, but none of this daily grind that we have had. You know, they meet multiple times, Tuesday through Thursday, sometimes Friday. If we can just make it to June, I think we're going to be okay. If they don't all quit before then, and your staff doesn't quit before then.
I understand. No one, to be clear and on the record, no one has come to me and said anything. No one asked me. I've just been making observations.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to just kind of point out that we got a long way to go. And when you mentioned, you know, we've heard it before about some of these things being behind, testing units and so on and so forth, needing to work extra to catch up, and I understand that has to happen sometimes. You just have to do that. I get all of that. That's not a criticism, but it's just a gut check to say, okay, but can we sustain, can certain people, and again, I have no one in mind, so don't try to figure out what I'm thinking, okay? It's just a general, I want to make sure that we do keep that in mind, because it is we're talking several years of this. And if we want to be successful, we need to be successful in year 6 or 7, not just in years 1 and 2. It's got to be sustained the entire time, and so we need to get into whatever that is, some sort of pattern that everyone can live.
Yeah, and I think the good news is it was based on the schedule. It's different resources have different crunch times. So, for instance, with the development estimations, we know that we need to, tighten that up. With regards to the test cases, once we get through that, I think there will be a breather period for everyone. So, depending on the responsibilities in the schedule, I think it's not going to be everybody all hands full steam ahead for the entire, next 4 years. So.
And another thing as well, one of the areas that keeps coming up is testing, and I always give Judy credit. Several years ago, when the department decided to go that we're going to be an agile shop or whatever, Judy spoke up and said, and we're going to need more testers. She says, because you don't test the same way. You don't, sit there and, then all of a sudden you get this massive amount of things to test for a release, and then they go off and develop. You're going to get things, and we didn't listen. The whole department did not listen. And now we see that as even if we're not doing Motorist Modernization, I believe that at this point testing will still be an issue. But one good thing about it is that I know Deb, you know this as well, that Robert and Steve probably know as well. Robert is looking at bringing in additional testers that's going to help with that. So hopefully moving forward we can be okay. And you're right, during this year that we're doing development, before we start ramping up for requirements for motor vehicle, I would love to find a way that we can minimize some of the daily grind of those meetings that we have for at least a year that we're meeting, that amount of time. So.
Thank you, Judy, and she isn't the only one. I heard it from others as well.
Oh, really? Okay, see, I knew she stole that idea. It wasn't right.
But anyway, I think I'm lost, Deb.
Oh, no, it's just along with that, the testing is going to be the heavy lift, and we've got not just testing as we move forward with all the new applications, but we've also got the new print solution, we've got the new IMS, we've got rolling out the new capture equipment, then we've got the new printers, we've got, it's going to be,
so while we're thinking about, right, we've got an operational side that we still have to balance
and then
with
training all the users on all the new systems and applications, so.
It's while it is true, I was not thinking about a particular person.
Yeah.
I was thinking about all those things that you just said, and I know are coming.
But Deb, you were talking. You're also, aren't you, dedicating some resources out of South Florida as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're going to have about probably looking at least. A core group of about 15 to 20 people who are going to be involved in the testing, and because we've got to have the resources to switch people out, and so Oscar's ready. He's gearing up. He's getting people involved, and then they're also going to be the people who, as we go forward, will be in the tax collector offices and the other offices, training and making sure that people know the application, testing the IMS, testing our print solution, the new application. So, yeah, good opportunity for a lot of people to shine and do something interesting. We just keep propping them up and sending them on. So.
Prop them up and send them where?
Send them on. They're excited, though. It's something new and interesting, and, it gets you on the front end and gives people a lot of opportunities to do things that they wouldn't normally be involved in.
Yes, thank you, Deb, for giving me that opportunity.
Somebody, would you like to come up and give us a presentation?
Well, I have a question when it's time.
Sure. Go right ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
While we're still on Q&A, when we talk about citation processing, could you tell me more specifically what that means?
I don't know. What's the question?
When
you talk about citation.
Included in that.
What's your program about?
What's in the
citation processing? Well, it's mostly in-house stuff that we're changing. As far as like the clerk's office and stuff, how they're submitting to us, that's not changing any. It's mostly how once we receive the data, how we're doing it in-house versus going, some things are going to go real time instead of batch. But mostly it's in-house stuff that we're modernizing.
Okay, so when we get to the point of the TCATS interface with your mainframe or however you're doing it now, just make sure to let me know so we can set up whatever meeting with our technical staff needs to be done. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on to the organizational change management update and communications update. And So, where is it?
Here you go.
Okay. So first, just to piggyback on what Terrence was saying earlier about the focus group meetings that we've been engaging with, this is actually just a little bit out of date. We had the Department of State meeting on January 11th. We also have a technical subgroup meeting with the Department of State that we had on, on January 7th, and then we had the full focus group meeting on the 11th. Our next technical subgroup meeting with the Department of State is in April, so we're in good shape there. We had the meeting with the Florida tax collectors at Valencia College in Orlando on the 20th. It was a fabulous event. In fact, let's take a look at some of the feedback we got from them. First and foremost, the overwhelming sentiment was that it was a great meeting. There are a few other items. One of the feedback statements that we got from Walton County, I wanted to put this one forward because they actually went through the governor's Sterling process, and they won the Governor's Sterling Award in 2014. Brian McBroom over there had some really nice things to say, and if you can't see it, it says it occurred to him during the session how wonderful the group meetings are to them. The state of Florida is going to receive a better system for our citizens and for tax collectors and DHSMV employees. By asking the people who really do the work on a daily basis, we will get a much better product, and this is the right direction for our state to be taking. So that was high praise indeed. Just a pictures from meetings. Of course, Judy and Jessica, Kathy, all did and Andrea, all did a fantastic job. So we've got our clerk support meeting that Kristen already described to you that we had on February 2nd, and Beth, I don't know if you had anything to say about that clerk support meeting.
Thank you, Samadi. We really appreciate you all coming over, and Barbara T. Scott, the clerk of our Court Operations Committee, was very happy. She thought it went very well. I did get more feedback from the other members of the committee, the clerks who were on it. They appreciated very much knowing about the project, and we have distributed your PowerPoint and a recording of the presentation to the membership in the state. So I think that was a really good job. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Beth. We do have a Bureau Chiefs meeting that's going to be on February 19th. And we've got the Bureau of Administrative Review workshop that I'll be scheduling sometime this week. So in addition to that, we do have Deliverable 22 that's coming up just this week on the 11th. We're super excited about that. The training and performance support strategy you've been hearing about for a very long time. Some of you would have filled out the questionnaire, the training needs assessment questionnaire. Thank you so much if you did fill it out. That information is going to be important to us as we're starting to plan the logistics for training later on down the line, but having big aggregate numbers was extremely important to us to be able to start to form deliverables. So thanks for your feedback on that. And of course, just as a reminder, that was what this was incorporating all those training needs and objectives, the curriculum, the delivery strategy, and then the performance support strategy. So communications update, once again, just a little bit out of, there are just a couple of things in addition to these items. We've got an update that we've done to the PartnerNet page that has actually an article about the Florida tax collector on the 20th on there. So we're slowly making ground with our outreach, with the newsletters, and our public-facing web page. We've got a great team that's leading that up, and I continue to serve as an SME on the public-facing web page. So, is there anything else? Any questions? All right. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Oh, Ed, by the way, we were supposed to send you, and I think we did, correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, when we met with the tax collectors, there were some issues that, of course, pertaining to the current system, and I think in the bureau chief meeting you had asked for a listing of that. Did we send?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? All right. No other questions. We're adjourned until next meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you all.
All right.